Hello, my name is Robynne-Kilborneblake. This management briefing explains the significance of developing an overall social media strategy to maximise the organisational and social media goals of the online legal publishing organisation, the Pacific Islands Legal Information Institute, or PACLI. The briefing proposes a fresh approach to strategic planning for PACLI's social media presence, the development of a social media content strategy, rethinking the role and usefulness of analytics, and identifying appropriate analytics tools, developing social media governance policies and protocols, and the integration of PACLI's social media with its core activities and website. The benefits of this approach align with PACLI's articulated social media goals that themselves will be better defined and more achievable and measurable. PACLI will be empowered to offer more effectively, take its products and services to users in their preferred spaces, creating a responsive customer service channel, facilitating conversations, and fostering community building. PACLI's social media can become a more effective tool that has measurable value. But of course there are challenges. Time, effort, and creativity are required to maintain an active and engaging social media presence, and there is pressure to respond instantly to queries and comments. Striking the right tone between the professional and the personal is important, and this takes time to get right, maintaining the PACLI brand consistently across multiple platforms. Limited funds to support more advanced social media usage and features can frustrate progress, and scheduling postings in multiple time zones and copyright can pose challenges. PACLI's social media presence currently consists of a Facebook page and an email newsletter. At present, there is no social media strategy or governance policies, and all roles and responsibilities are devolved on the director. In the Director's 2013 paper, PACLI's goals in establishing the Facebook page were ambitious but not unrealistic. To grow PACLI's reach, connecting with a young demographic, using platforms already adopted in the Pacific, giving PACLI a more human face, promoting an understanding of legal information, and developing PACLI into more than a publisher of primary legal materials, but a hub for a broader analysis of Pacific Islands legal issues. Future goals are to establish a discussion forum for Pacific Islands lawyers and a community legal forum. So what's the problem? Well, as it stands, the Facebook page is a mixture of friendly staff photos and announcements of the latest website content. The problem is that there are very few likes or comments on posts, indicating that PACLI's goals of engagement, discussions and community development are not being met. Conversations promoting the understanding of law and community creation are just not happening. But why is PACLI's participation in social media important at all? Well, the answer lies in the numbers. There are currently 2 billion active social media accounts worldwide. That's 28% of the planet's population. 2 billion potential PACLI users. Roughly 1.6 billion of these accounts are active via mobile technologies, which has a growing penetration in the Pacific Islands. Google search now reportedly gets more queries from mobile devices than desktops. These days, social media is a one-stop shop for content discovery. Users rely on social media for virtually everything they used to get from websites, emails, and search engines. The bottom line is that engaging more PACLI users indicates PACLI is relevant and useful to a larger community, and that supports the case for attracting more reliable and additional organisational funding. The message in this briefing is that engagement is crucial for success. It's not enough just to have an online presence if it doesn't engage your users. So developing a planned social media strategy to re-energise Packly's social media is proposed. Firstly, Packly needs to develop its strategic planning by reconsidering its social media goals, the platforms it uses, how to engage its audiences in conversations and foster communities. Secondly, there needs to be a focus on content creation, creating content that people want to talk about and share. Thirdly, develop social media governance policies that support social media strategies, minimise risks, and create a coherent and consistent Packly brand, tone, and identity across all its media platforms. Fourth, analytics. Find out how people use social media so you don't miss opportunities to connect with them. Also, measure your performance so you know where you're succeeding and understand where you need to improve. Finally, integrating social media with web content and Packly activities will provide more focused communication strategies with greater impact. Planning in these 4 areas is the key. It's proposed that Packly develop its social media goals. One method might be following the SMART criteria. Questions that could usefully be asked are, how can the success or failure of each of Packly's goals be defined? What strategies should be associated with each of them? Are the goals possible, scalable, and manageable? Are they aligned with a deep understanding of Packly users and user interest around Packly services or products? And keep in mind that setting timeframes helps when measuring impact. The size of social media audiences is exploding. Packly needs to engage in research and analysis of its users across all platforms to understand their behaviours and interests. Audience analysis would help Packly ensure it reaches the right audience with the right messages at the right times by informing tactics for specific groups and identifying opportunities. I'll come back to this idea of understanding users and user behaviour again. But first, let's look at platforms. Facebook's 1.44 billion share of the market is a big reason why Packly's choice of platform has been a good one. But should Packly be considering other platforms as well? The number of social media networks an organisation is active on should really depend on where that organisation's audience is actively participating, as well as the organisation's capacity to manage extra channels. Twitter and LinkedIn are both used for professional networking and personal learning networks. Legal professionals, library and information professionals, who together form a large part of Packly's audience, will be found in these communities. Even given capacity constraints, it may be useful to consider adopting one of these platforms. A great example of how to participate in this networking on a shoestring budget is the International Librarians Network. This organisation utilises Twitter chats and monthly discussions via its interactive blog to create networks of librarians and a community of peer mentors who actively discuss topics of professional interest. This model would be well worth considering. For reaching younger audiences, the rise of the more visual platforms such as Instagram indicates there's a huge and growing millennials audience who has very little patience for long or complex content. And they're looking for short visual grabs. But perhaps at this stage, these are not quite right for Packly just yet. So let's talk about conversations and communities. Social media platforms are not just broadcast channels. Beyond the broadcasting of website content announcements, the value to Packly of using social media is in utilising its interactive potential for this wide range of purposes that all work towards Packly's goals. Starting, of course, with engagement. Actively monitoring and posting on the Facebook account is the first step in engagement. Firstly, to proactively engage in conversations when people inquire, comment, or like posts, but also to rectify any problems such as broken links and to listen in to chatter in social media spaces to monitor the Packley brand, reputation and interests. In social media, content is king. The use of content, however, has changed, and the digital environment has driven that change. To achieve social media success, it's now necessary to have a content strategy. New, creative, interesting, relevant, and shareable content is the key. A successful content strategy is not just about being on social media. It must be based on understanding users' needs and desires, and that will enable content creation that people do want to talk about. Understanding what to publish, when and where can greatly increase visibility and reach of content. Content strategy should have immediacy. People everywhere want to be part of virtual conversations that are happening now. And a focused content strategy will help users cut down on the information overload that we all often face. Finally, it should also align content with the strategic goals of the organisation. Ultimately, great content will lift the performance of Packley's Facebook page and more effectively serve its goals. Current trends in content creation. There has been a shift from continuing to create new content to strategically considering how best to deploy existing content. Short visual content already dominates the digital space. Successful organisations will be ones who can find a way to bridge the gap between audiences' short attention spans and the right short-form content. So, being creative with Packley content is going to be important in future. Social media posts are increasingly being illustrated with images and video. The ability to offer information in a variety of formats provides the flexibility needed to meet user needs. Finally, social media is increasingly being used to enhance teaching and learning opportunities. E-learning is a growing area, and social media broadens the means of knowledge transfer by using different tools. Packley has a strong training program, and integrating that program with social media is something to consider. Actions Packley could consider now are monitoring Packley mentions in social media spaces, using saved searches, using scheduled updates for content sharing to reduce workload, taking advantage of attachment capabilities to provide more complex information, ensuring users have effective sharing options for content, focusing analytics around optimal timing and targeting of content, and researching opportunities for e-learning to support its training. If we don't know how people are using our social media, then we're missing opportunities to engage with them. Analytics is becoming a critical component in the social media communications process, allowing organisations to plan and measure the actions they take to execute on their strategy. Analytics enable an organisation to understand the impact of its own activities. However, figuring out how to gather information on the impact of social media is a new and challenging area. One helpful guide is that frequency of postings and responsiveness have now been linked to high user engagement. Posting more often can get better results, provided your content is good. Metrics, frameworks and guidelines are being developed to provide assistance in this area, and a key initiative will be to find the right tools to track performance. Figuring out what your particular audience responds to is vital. Social media management and reporting tools such as Hootsuite may be useful. Predictive analytics are also an emerging trend which can tell you what kinds of content you should provide that will bring more attention and more users. A successful social media team, whether one or more people, needs to dedicate time and resources. It also requires effective structures, guidelines, and protocols. This is increasingly seen as an important part of organisational governance, representing a key part of contemporary communications practice. Good governance structures also have a positive effect on social media strategies and on the level of social media activity. The recommendations are to first, formally identify and allocate social media roles and responsibilities, develop a risk management policy and protocols, as well as social media guidelines for employees. A brand, logo, and style guide is important for consistency of style, tone, and image, creating a coherent identity. Archiving protocols for the newsletter and forum posts are important to document and information management. And of course, employee training in all protocols and guidelines will be necessary. Finally, key performance indicators need to be developed to measure success. Social media is a time-hungry activity. Representing PACLI as a professional organisation with a consistent tone is a priority, but ideally it should be balanced with a human approach where individuals can inject personality into posts and activities. This is not an easy balancing act, but simple and direct employee guidelines can help assuage fears about employee participation. Drafting effective employee guidelines can be tricky, but there are some great examples and supporting literature online to help. The ABC's guidelines, for example, are simple and direct. Concern about the risks of social media activity underpins the reluctance of the director to invest fully in social media. Some of the risks PACLI might encounter are certainly serious, but are definitely manageable. A considered risk management policy would alleviate concerns by identifying and evaluating all of the risks and establishing effective risk management strategies, setting out detailed protocols to be implemented if something goes wrong. Integration of social media with PACLI's core activities and website will provide a cohesive and consistent PACLI identity, cross-promotion of communications campaigns, and raise awareness and reach across all media platforms. Ultimately, this overall approach will deliver a more cohesive PACLI communication strategy with much greater impact. Thank you for your time.